Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Women Are Worthy show. I am so excited about this. So, the Women Are Worthy show, we're honored to have the Honorable Nelly Miles as a guest to our show. Nelly Miles has been employed with the GBI investigation for 21 years. She currently serves as the GBI's Public Affairs Director. She's acting as a liaison between the agency, the media, and the public. The Women Are Worthy show, we welcome Miss Nelly Miles. Hello, Miss Nelly.
Hello, Miss Jacqueline. So happy to be here.
I wanted to have someone who had the knowledge, the experience to be on the show to talk about law enforcement, because today's show is titled Females or Women in Law Enforcement. So can you please tell us a little bit about Nelly Miles, and then we'll talk about who you are and what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Nelly Miles. I am a mother, a wife, have three small children, grew up in Georgia and went to Emory University, and I studied chemistry there. And that's why, as you know, from before, I was on the show talking about opioids. And so my dream was always to be a doctor. I grew up with that, that sort of passion because I'm first generation. My parents are Nigerian. If you know anything about African parents, you pretty much as a child, we only have pretty much three options of what we can do, and that's doctor, lawyer, or teacher. So I picked doctor, and I just pursued that path. And again, I went to Emory, graduated, and after a certain point, I decided that, you know what, I just kind of wanted a break after studying. I mean, I was 20 in my early 20s, and I thought I had worked so hard I needed a break. But 21 years later, I'm still at the GBI. That was my break at that point, and it's been an awesome career so far.
So what led you to the GBI? And, what was it, were you watching? Because right now kids are watching CSI and things like that. So what led you to the GBI?
You know what, truth be told, growing up, I just don't remember us having that many forensic types of shows. There was no CSI or Forensic Files. I mean, I remember shows like Magnum PI and Hunter, and there may have been some aspect of forensics. And I know I'm kind of telling my age a little bit, but I honestly did not know what forensic science was. I had no idea. I worked part-time at a restaurant and met somebody who worked at the GBI. And this individual basically said, what are you doing? He was there with his family, and he told me, hey, if you want to consider another option, because I told him I was about to graduate, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to go to medical school yet. But I really wanted to still utilize my chemistry degree because, I mean, a degree like chemistry, all those hours you put in those extra labs, I said, if I'm going to get this degree, I need to use this degree, even if it's for just 2 minutes. And he said, let me tell you about the GBI. I thought he said CDI. I honestly did not even know he said GBI. I'm not kidding you, Jacqueline. And so I called the GBI and I said, oh, it's the GBI. Oh, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And even growing up in Georgia, I didn't really know what the agency did. Like I knew the FBI. I mean, and I knew local law enforcement. I just wasn't as familiar with the GBI, but I applied, went through a very intense background investigation. So I will tell students out there that there's a serious process, and I'm talking about polygraph tests, background where they interviewed people in my life, credit check. I mean, it is really, really important. Drug testing. We have a lot of people fall out of our background because they're smoking marijuana. Marijuana, of course, in a lot of states is normalized. And even though the laws are not quite there here in Georgia, but still, we still have a lot of people that fall out of that process. And so after going through that process, they offered me a job about 5 or 6 months later. And I said, okay, that sounds interesting. I'll be testing drugs, utilizing my chemistry degree. I'm in the lab. I'm going to court to testify as an expert witness. I always tell people there's no more interesting way to utilize a chemistry degree. And I'm working under the auspice of this wonderful criminal investigative agency, the GBI.
So what do you find fulfilling about your position?
Well, early in my career, working in the lab, I really found that it was always changing. Technology was changing. It was not stagnant. I had an opportunity to really escalate in the career. So I started off as a drug chemist, and then after some years, I went into management. And then, managing people, that's a whole different ball game. And I think you really learn and acquire some great skills that you can utilize for life, how to treat people, how to help people work through, issues and develop people. And I think that was such a great tool because, I've had 3 children while I've been working. And I learned things like if I wanted to really be successful in the long run, I can't hoard information. I need to pour into other people. So information that I know, if you're my second in command, you know it too. That way, when I leave, even if I step away for a day or if I step away for 3 months, you have that information. So it just really taught me a lot of things. I had an employee that was, she was in a car accident. And, instead of, making sure she was okay, oftentimes as a manager, you kind of say, well, are you okay? How's the vehicle? But you really need to be concerned about the person because, people don't care what you know if they think you don't care. And so I think that it just taught me a lot of valuable skills. But after 16 years, working in the crime lab, as interesting as it was, I had my eye on public affairs a little bit because towards the end of my stint in forensics, we had a lot of media questions, a lot of inquiries about drug trends. There was a specific drug trend called synthetic cannabinoids, K2 spice, you may have heard about it. And so the previous spokespersons, they'd come over and they'd want some assistance in communicating that information. So when you asked me what I found rewarding, I was like, here's an opportunity to inform, to provide information, to engage. I'd go to the Capitol and testify in subcommittee hearings about changing drug laws. I would go to schools to talk to kids about drugs. So I had an opportunity to not just be in the lab, but also represent the agency and give back and educate and inspire other young students, especially women that look like me. And so it's just constantly rewarding. And then, after a while, working in the lab and experimenting with a little bit of what public affairs is. And I will admit, I really got a small taste. I didn't really know all of what I was getting into, but the previous director, Vernon Keenan, appointed me as the public affairs deputy director. That was a new position that they created, and I was appointed in that position. And then a year later, I was promoted and appointed as public affairs director. And so all those things that I told you about, those skills of having how to work with people, how to talk to people, educating people, letting people know what's going on. I was able to take those 16 years in forensics and really just package that into this role that really requires in public affairs, as said liaison, basically a liaison for our state legislature. The GBI, people may know, we have our own agency legislation. And as I'm not it's like a lobbyist, but I'm not a lobbyist. I'm a legislative liaison. I represent the GBI. But, I work with our state legislatures to get those bills through. I'm, kind of the eyes and ears under the gold dome. If they need anything as it pertains to the GBI during session, I help them out with that. Constituent issues, I, help them get some of their constituent issues taken care of. Also a liaison for the governor's office as matters that pertain to the GBI. But then let's talk about the media. I have to have relationships with the media so that they can help us get information out about what's going on with the GBI, officer-involved shootings, murder investigations, sexual assault cases, public corruption, all types of cases. And we're, round the clock, 24/7, these ladies and gentlemen are, out there basically serving and protecting us. And so a lot of people don't understand the GBI is a request agency. And so we have to be requested to initiate an investigation in most crimes. And so just trying to basically educate the public about, what it is we do, what our role is, how we're here to help. And so, the media aspect is very interesting, getting that out, the public policy aspect and getting those laws through and, meeting these other advocates for different causes from, elder abuse to human trafficking and, everything in between. And so it is just, that's just some of it. There's more. There's social media management, and social media, getting information out on social media on the platforms, essentially connecting with the community. We dealt with a lot in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd. And, I felt like a lot of progress that had been made between, our communities and law enforcement. We all felt, it was hurtful because we all felt that we had taken a few steps back, all the hard work that we did to try to bridge those gaps. And so we know it's been tough, but it's not over. Okay, the fight's not over. And so, we're here, me as a spokesperson, as a public safety communicator, just to let the public know we care, and we want to make sure that they understand what we do, but also that we want to know what they need. And so I think that it's just I'm in a position to be able to, not just serve as an influence, but really just inform. And, so you can see kind of the human side, even though I'm not sworn myself, but I mean, I'm in a law enforcement family after 21 years. I mean, police officers have to claim me. So yeah, it's been a great ride. It's not been without challenges, but it's been very rewarding.
See, in 2021 now, as women, we can do anything we want to do. But going back to when you first started, were you the first or one of the few women in the GBI in the position you were going for? And also, was it challenging, while you were doing that, or intimidating?
Well, what I would say, I wasn't actually the first woman. We haven't had many public affairs directors. The first one that we had, John Bankhead, he served in this position for 25 years. Great, great man. He's now retired and, living his best life. And then there was the first woman, her name is Sherry Lang, also retired. She did it a few years towards the end of her career. So her time in this role wasn't as long. And then Scott Dutton, who I worked under for a year before he was promoted to a job in the investigative division. So I'm only the fourth person in this role, the second woman. But I mean, I'm going to tell you about women in the agency. I said, I knew I was going to talk to you this evening.
Right.
And I knew the title was Women in Law Enforcement. And so I asked our HR director, I said, hey, can you give me some stats on how many women we have, the percentage? And so I'm going to share with you some stats.
Okay.
So the GBI has 3 divisions. So it's going to serve as a little bit of an education piece about the GBI. So about the agents, right? The investigative division. That's the division that when you think about the GBI, that's what you think of. So that division is 40%, almost 41% female. And if you think about historically what you see and know as a cop, you wouldn't think 41%, but we have really great representation. And I'm excited because March is Women's History Month. So I'm thinking and brainstorming, okay, what are we going to do for Women's History Month to highlight these wonderful agents? They're really great and they're really smart. And I mean, of course, I'm partial GBI agents, but they're really good. They're really great. We have some great women at the GBI. The second division, the one that I grew up in, the Division of Forensic Sciences, there's a lot of women. It's 73% women. Wow. Most of our forensic scientists are women, and it's heavily saturated with women, great women who are scientists from all different disciplines. Of course, I'm a chemist. There are biologists. My husband is actually the crime lab director, believe it or not. So he's a biologist, for GBI. So he's a biologist.
Keep it in the family.
Keep it in the family. So you know what the kids are going to be expected to do, right? Okay, I won't start brainwashing them just yet. Maybe a couple of years down the road.
Maybe your parents will.
Exactly. Exactly. That's funny. But we've got, chemists, we have biologists, we have a discipline called firearms where they test ballistics. There's a section called trace evidence where they're doing really small amounts of really tiny, microscopic evidence. And we have fingerprints or latent prints. And so, we have a variety of services. And once you get in one discipline, then you're trained in that to become, an expert. We don't bop around from discipline to discipline. You want to make sure you gain that level of expertise. So when you go to court, I remember how much pride I took in saying, I've been a forensic chemist for, X number of years. I've worked over X, how many thousands of cases, and I've testified hundreds of times. It just really builds you up as an expert witness. And then there's the Georgia Crime Information Center, which is another division, and that is 79% women. And so that particular division is responsible, really, I always say it's like the criminal justice highway. I mean, as far as information is concerned. So, they deal a lot with like the background checks and criminal history information. They have a lot. They manage the sex offender registry. So there are a lot of databases, a lot of computers, but a very, very integral part of the criminal justice process. And then we have administration, and administration is important. Administration, we won't run. We need human resources. We need staff services because we need to make sure the building is maintained, and kept up. We have an Office of Professional Standards. We have several administrations. Public affairs. My office is a part of administration, and that's 78% women as well. So, if you look at the numbers, it looks like the GBI is basically being overrun by women. When you look at it like that, I never thought of it like that.